Yes. What's happening, everybody? It's Tuesday night, 10 o'clock Central Time, so we're doing what we do every single week when there's a UFC event on Saturday, and we go live for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy, where I give you just the tip of the stats for all 13 fights that are going to be on this UFC 282 card, headlined by not an interim light heavyweight championship fight, but an actual light heavyweight championship fight, because Jiri Prochazka has had to vacate the title due to a very, very serious shoulder injury that it's going to probably take him over a year to recover from. So we're going to have Magomed Ankalaev, the very handsome man, squaring off against Jan Blachowicz for the 205-pound light heavyweight championship of the UFC. And in addition to that fight, we've got 12 other fights on this card. And from top to bottom, this one is a lot of fun. A lot of very intriguing matchups, a lot of new prospects that we don't know much about, but we're going to find out about on Saturday. And really from top to bottom, I am liking this card from an action perspective. From a betting perspective in particular, I've already got over 5 units of track bets thus far. And I am definitely going to be looking to add to that some more here as I finish rounding out my research for the week. But I've got all of these fights written up except for the main event right now. And I've watched tape on pretty much all of these fighters. So I'm ready to go. I hope you guys are ready to go and break down this card. Last week, we were up about 1.7 units. Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week was Jonathan Pierce. I figured he would get it done inside the distance. I bet him to win by third round knockout. Dan Miragliotta, get some help. You guys, I'm going to be starting a GoFundMe that's called Get Some Help Dan Miragliotta. And what the purpose of the GoFundMe is going to be now, we're going to try to get help for Dan Miragliotta. What kind of help does he need? I don't know. Dan's going to have to take a long, hard look in the mirror and be honest with himself about the help that he needs, because it's clear that he needs some kind of help. And I figure we'll start a GoFundMe that's just called Get Some Help Dan Miragliotta. And instead of sending the money to Dan Miragliotta, we'll send it to me, and I'll keep the money. And then what we'll do is I will meet with Dan Miragliotta, and we will decide the best way for him to get some help. And if he convinces me that he really wants help, I will use that money that you gave me to help Dan Miragliotta. He will then get some help from me and from the money that we raise from getting Dan Miragliotta some help, you guys, because he needs help. He cost me money. I had a quarter unit bet at plus 1,600 on Pierce to win by third round by knockout, and that damn fight didn't get stopped, and Jonathan didn't get his position back. Really a bad slip up by Dan. But I started off really bad last week. Lost 1 unit on the Estela Nunez money line. I lost another 1.15 units on the under 2.5 in the Levy Valdez fight. And then I lost 1.4 units on Jonathan Pierce, 1.15 on the inside the distance bet, and 0.25 units on the third round knockout bet, which absolutely should have cashed. But then from there, cashed every bet. We cashed the under 1.5 in the Tuivasa fight. We cashed the under 2.5 in the Hermanson Dolidze fight. We cashed the Erik Anders money line, and we cashed the over 2.5 in the Thompson Holland main event. So I ended up 1.7 units over the last 3 events. I think we're up close to 15 units, somewhere about 13 to 15 units, somewhere in there. So we're definitely on a little run here, 3 event winning streak. Definitely want to keep it rolling this week. And like I said, there's a lot of ways that we can absolutely make that happen, you guys. Start of the month, great time to sign up for the Patreon. $5 a month gets you access to the stats that you see here on Just the Tip every week. $20 gets you access to the advanced stats, where we get the analytics for the over-under bets. And you guys have been seeing how I've been cashing these over-under bets lately, making a ton of money. If you go and follow me on Bet MMA Tips, you'll see my prop bets this year are really fantastic, and the return on investment on them is very high. So Appreciate if you guys would support the channel, support your Uncle Weezy by signing up for that Patreon. A lot of good content coming out, and we're going to be rebuilding that database and updating and improving everything for next year as well. So I'm looking forward to getting some more people on that Patreon and helping us as a community really find the best priced bets that the analytics and the tape study back up so that we can stack cash tickets like flapjacks and beat these bookies with a bag of oranges until we juice them, you guys. What's up with you guys, though? How are you guys feeling about this event? You guys ready to watch all 13 fights on Saturday? Only 2 UFC events left in the calendar year 2022, and this is the last pay-per-view of the year. So let's make the most of it. Let's finish this year strong. Let's see what's going on here in the chat with you guys. We got my guy Mushroom, the first one in the chat, saying, "Oi, yes, a statistical genius and the best chat. Must be Tuesday night. Let's fucking go. Let's go, Mushroom. Good to see you in here as always. You got my guy Daz Files in the room as always saying, let's go. We got M.A. Laren saying, oi, let's go with this Frankenstein who would pay per view. St. Preux is still calling out people on Twitter. I saw that. And wait until we see the scales. Sancta Claus Plessis plus whom for max bet. Thank you. Okay, so we got to find you a max bet, huh? On this card, man, you know, the big favorites, I'm not a big fan of this week, you know. Maybe Ankalaev, but I don't know. I don't like the line. You know, Jan's just got too much power. Oh, boy. What are we max betting? Nah, we're not max betting anything, man. If you're happy with the Duplessis bet, I will give you all my track bets, though, M.A. Laren, at the end of the show. Find something in there that you like, but I am not loving any of the juice this weekend, you guys. And you're going to see when we get to the end of the show how much I hate the juice this week. So not max betting anything, but definitely got some. I would say my favorite line of the week, M.A. Laren, if you can find me under 2.5 for the Alexander Hernandez versus Quarantillo fight at plus 140 or better, bet that. That's my favorite bet of the week. We got my guy Jazz in the room, JSJ23, saying, oi, Weezy, how many of these lightweights ranked below Paddy would you favor him against? Frivola, Hakparast, Malaki, Hernandez. Which Hernandez, though? Because Hernandez is now, one. If you're talking about Alexander Hernandez, we're talking 145. Alves. So Hakparast has excellent takedown defense and excellent boxing, and Paddy blocks punches with his face. So I would think that Hakparast would probably beat him. Matt Frivola's would engage in the war with Paddy most likely, and that would be a super fun fight. I think both guys would actually have success in that fight, and that would be, because if Paddy gets this win, I think if you match him up against Frivola, because the timing's right. Frivola's just coming off a win, and if Paddy were to win on Saturday, that's a fight that the fans could get behind. It would be all action, and they would be very well matched against each other. Jamie Malarkey, I'm not really high on Malarkey. I would probably pick Paddy over him. I don't know which Hernandez you're talking about, and frankly, I don't even know which Alves you're talking about at 155, because there's like 33 Alves in the fucking UFC, and just giving me the last name isn't even going to be good enough at this point. But yeah, dude, I mean, Paddy Pimblett as a gambler, when you're trying to break down all areas of the fight, Paddy Pimblett's one of those guys that literally checks no boxes. He's piss poor on defense. He gets taken down all the fucking time. He's a good submission grappler, and he's got great power, and he's in great fights because he trusts his chin. He goes into these all-action, balls-out wars, which the fans absolutely love. But really, like, from a gambler's perspective, it's not the kind of guy you lay juice on. There's just way too many holes in his game. David Barista saying, thank you, Uncle Weezy, for last week's stacked plate of winning tickets smothered in maple syrup. Outstanding analysis from you led to some insane bets landing for me. Much love, David. Big ups to you, brother. I haven't had the ingredients in the house for a proper Paloma here in a minute, but I've got my Mexican squirt. I've got my good tequila. I've got some limes. Having a little beverage here tonight while we break down these fights, guys. I hope you don't mind. We got my guy Buffo on the beat. What's up, dude? Saying, oi, mirror, mirror on the wall. Who is the wheeziest uncle of all? Right here, baby. You got it. And you know who it is, Buffo. Good to see you in here, brother. Thanks for hanging out. We got Dick's Insider. What's up, man? Saying, I heard Weezy is so good looking. They have pictures of him all over artificial insemination rooms to get women aroused during the procedure. He makes a royalty per baby like Mr. Wonderful from Shark Tank. Yes, that's a half-truth. That's actually a half-truth. But I'm not going to get into all of it because of the contractual obligations and the non-disclosures that I signed. But let's just say that Dick's Insider, my guy over there, he's onto the right path there. A half-truth, we'll call it. Nathan Robinson in the room saying, oi, would you play Pimblett inside the distance at minus 105? That's the way I would play Pimblett if I was betting Pimblett, is to bet him inside the distance because he's a fantastic finisher. And Jared Gordon has been finished in all 5 of his professional losses. So Jared Gordon's undefeated in his career in decisions. So, I think, Gordon's the minute winner and Paddy Pimblett is the moment winner. So, yeah, that's the way that I would play Pimblett if I was on the Pimblett side, Nathan. And we got Dixon saying, Weezy, ever since you told me to hit myself in the head with a blunt object for having a hot take on Vandera versus Sherman, I've been making terrible World Cup bets. Oh, dude, I think there's a lot of people who got hammered on the World Cup. I mean, how many people had Morocco coming out of that group, with Belgium in it? And then they come out and they win today. So, the World Cup's always wild. I don't bet on it personally, but I know that there have been some people getting starched out there on the World Cup bets. It's rough. It's a hard sport to bet on. But, yeah, man. You think you might have hit yourself too hard. I hope that's not the case, man, because concussions are super bad for you. We got my guy Dan Goldstein in the room saying Slovin St. Preux ain't going to make the walk. Sergey Spivak has him lined up for a bloodletting session sometime over the next few days. Thanks for hanging out, Dan. Always good to have you in here, brother. Lou Betya, my guy in the room saying, Weezy, who would you rather have bone? Who would you rather bone? Meg Ryan or Jack Nicholson? 1974 Jack Nicholson, to be clear. Wow. Oh boy, and just the fact that that's a hard question to answer should tell you that Meg Ryan needs to get some help. That's the way I'm going to answer that question. Get some help, Meg Ryan. Get a better plastic surgeon, because the last one you should be suing for everything they're worth. Dan Goldstein saying, I'm betting the Daggy Cliff Goblin by violence. I think he wakes up in his cave on fight day, scares 3 villages worth of people on the way down, and then Jan randomly blows his neck out in 5 seconds. Weezy, do you ever shed like a dog when you're combing your hair? It happens to me. It's super annoying. I was told to mash up an avocado and spread it in my hair for 45 minutes to strengthen. Have you tried it? I have not tried it. Yeah, dude, especially when I'm washing my hair, it comes out. It comes out in the shower. It comes off on the brush, but I've got a ridiculously thick head of hair. So no matter how much comes out, more of it just seems to grow in. So I'm blessed with that good head of hair. I might be willing to try mash up an avocado, but I'm gonna have to wait for inflation to stop sucking so bad, because avocados are expensive as hell these days. But I might try it one day, man. But luckily, I've been blessed with good hair, Dick's Insider. We got Papa Chuck saying, Weezy, why is a teenager minus 256 in their UFC debut? Well, I think we're going to find out whether that's juiced or not. But the reason is, Papa Chuck, because hype drives the line. And that was something my guy, DFS by the numbers, always says. Lou saying, I get older, they stay the same age. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Oh, man. And Jay saying, Impa Kasanganay pushing to fight OSP this Saturday. He was harshly cut. Yeah, and I know he's been fighting regional scene shows lately as well. So maybe they'll find a spot for him there, man. The Pulse Whale saying, "Oi, yo, Weezy, you got any advice on how to stop snoring? It's about to cost me my marriage. I'll try anything you suggest." Snoring. No, I don't have any suggestions on that. I sleep like the dead, and I definitely snore, I'm sure. But yeah, you know what? You might want to tell your wife to get something that'll help her sleep better at night so that she could sleep through. But if she's a light sleeper, then it's just messed up, man. Nothing I could do to help you there. But if you need help with UFC betting statistics, then I'm your guy. Corey Mann saying, "Oi, what do you think about 1 unit Brown Silva over 1.5 rounds? Parlay with Shahbazyan and Lungiambula over 1.5 rounds. Got it at plus 165. I think Shahbazyan and Lungiambula are both very, very dangerous in round one. So I would be very, I would be much less confident about the over 1.5 for Shahbazyan and Lungiambula than I would for the Brown Silva over 1.5. I like that Brown Silva over 1.5. And Jeff K saying, Pulse, get a sleep test. You may have sleep apnea. Yeah, that's true. Oh, you know what? Some good advice for that. There's this friend of a friend who is saying that he bought a book on breathing and started breathing through his nose. And what he started doing was, because he had bad sleep apnea, he would just put a piece of tape over his mouth at night so that he would have to breathe through his nose. And he was telling a bunch of people at Thanksgiving dinner that like it's changed his life, and that he's, for the first time in his life, he's actually getting a lot of sleep. So maybe put a little something over your mouth so that you have to breathe through your nose. And if you do that, maybe you'll stop snoring. Who knows? But I'm not a doctor, and I don't know where you find a sleep test. Jeff K saying, Google sleep test near me. If you're in the U.S., your insurance should cover it. And Dan saying, what's up, Shroom, my brother? I'm dodging work today like James Krause dodges the law. We got Nate Robinson saying, what's the lowest price you'd bet Billy Hernandez under 2.5? On my prop template, which I'm not sharing the screen right now, but I will shortly. The under 2.5, even at plus 118, is a 10% break over what they go over under 2.5, which is about 56% compared to the 46% of the implied probability of the line. And they go under 2.5, Quarantillo and Hernandez combined in their 16 UFC fights at a 17.75% rate, bigger than what the division does. So it's a great bet, and it's only overpriced by about 7 points. So anything at plus 115 or better is still a really good bet. Jeff K saying, so work was not dodged. And then ring a ding ding. We got my guy Martin Dermov in the room saying, you should be getting paid for these breakdowns. Thanks as always. Patty and Ankalaev for the win. Let's stack them high this week. Martin, I appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much for the donation. Let's stack them high this week. And I know that Martin had a massive week last week, so I really appreciate you sharing the wealth and supporting the channel, my man. Much love to you, brother. Appreciate it. Dan saying, LOL, allegedly, Jeff. And then ring a ding ding, dude. My guy Luke, sparring with reality, all the way from Las Vegas in the room, saying, Gordon decision plus 500. Insert data load size full GIF. The Dana load size is one of my favorite MMA gifts of all time. I bet the Gordon decision at plus 500 for one full unit, you guys. Your Uncle Weezy is swinging for the fences with only 2 events left in the year. Jared Gordon is a much better minute winner than Paddy Pimblett is. So his path to decision, or his path to victory, is a decision win at plus 500. That's a 16.67% implied probability on the line. Had to swing for the fences on that one. Thank you for swinging for the fences, my guy Luke, and donating $5 for the channel. Ring a ding ding. Let's go with the donation. Love you, Luke. Thanks for hanging out, brother. JSJ is saying sign up to that Patreon. Love you for saying that, Jazz. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate that. Jarno, my guy, Mr. Finland in the room saying, oi, let's go. Weezy Matt Chalk saying, oi. Daz File saying, what's up to Mushroom? Jazz saying, Perrin decision plus 400. Not a bad look at all, and I agree with that as well, Jazz. I am on the J. Perrin money line, as you guys will find out shortly. DJ saying, oi. We got Dan saying Magomed is the goblin from a 1312 nursery rhyme. And Dan Goldstein saying Dan Murgliata doesn't represent the Dan collective as a whole. Yes, I've heard he's being excommunicated from it. Antonio Esparza saying, oi, what's up, Unk and chat? Thought on Till du Plessis over under 2.5 at minus 150. I think Till gets chinned in the first. I could certainly see that. Until canceled 4 out of his last 5 fights. We've seen him once in the last little over 2 years. It's just been a long time since we've seen Darren. There's really no idea what we're going to expect from him. There's a lot of missing information. And when there's missing information, it makes me a lot less confident about betting either side. I just don't know where either of these. Well, I don't know where Darren Till is right now. But if you're looking at an over or an under in a Dricus du Plessis fight, the trend will tell you that you want to be betting the unders, my friend. Brady Stevens saying, honestly, the majority of refs are incompetent. Herzog probably fucks up the least. Yeah, I think he does, man. If Dan Murgliata refuses the help, use the money for Palomas and Indicas. You guys, yeah, I mean, like that's why I say I want the money. Send the money to me, right? And then I promise I will make sure, that Dan Murgliata gets the help he needs. And, you're not just helping Dan, you're helping the entire MMA gambling community if we can get Dan the help that he needs. My God, am I way behind? I'm 22 minutes into this show. Dan Goldstein bet I bet Emily Ducote, and it's not the bet, but how bullish I was that this shameful shit. Andres KO and Rose saved my skin, but still, I bet Emily Ducote. Yeah, Andres definitely got the job done. And then we got Dan Goldstein, ring a ding ding with $5 from New Zealand saying for the bag of oranges. I appreciate you, brother. Another donation. You guys, I have got to get to this show because we've got 13 fights to break down here. We got Sean saying, I support the candidacy of Uncle Weezy for the office of President of the United States 2024. What could go wrong if that happened? I think I'm definitely the best choice out there for sure. And let's see, Buckley took a lot of damage in Paris, just like Tuivasa. You won't be able to evade Curtis the way Hermanson did. Yes, absolutely, man. What Weezy is the female arousal. Kim Winslow is the sperm donation. Kim Winslow. You guys are the best. We got my guy Bow Better in the room. Chicago men in the room. What's up, dude? We got Low T City Ortega saying Weezy, I believe Topuria will make it look easy. Bryce brings nothing that Ilia will be concerned about. I see him winning scrambles and eventually scrambling Bryce's brain. I watched that Ilia Topuria tape, man. It's good. That tape is good. And then, yes, of course, the newest sponsor of the show, you guys, if you're looking to get wrist deep in some co-ed and then get her out of there that same night for non-committal one-night stands, you want to look at my guys over at XXX18.online. This is the new site, and it's only got the hottest girls. And let's see, what else do we have here? The mouth taping troop is called the Oxygen Advantage, and will change your life, especially for athletes. The mouth taping troop is called the Oxygen Advantage. Will change your life, especially for athletes. Easy to find book for free with great advice on improving many areas through breathing. Cool. So you've heard about that before. Sweet, man. Weezy gave bro the David Carradine method for a deep sleep. You guys are the best. I love all you guys. Oh, my God. So let's get started. Let me share my screen with you guys here. And Yes, I've got my prop template up here. I have got the stats up here. We are going to start on the very first fight of the night. And if you want to have these stats ready for you about 10 days before every single UFC event so that you can get ahead of the bookies, join that Patreon for only $5 a month. But we're going to start with the curtain jerker here, which is going to be two very young, very unproven mixed martial artists here. And Saaiman, who's coming in at minus 330 right now on BetOnline Sportsbook, versus Stephen Koslow, Obi-Wan Shinobi, the Pillow, at plus 270. And the fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up to minus 220 for a flyweight fight here. So for the measurables, I have it even. I don't know Koslow's reach, but Cam is 1 inch taller, and it's a southpaw versus switch matchup with Cam being the southpaw here. The experience advantage goes to Saaiman as well, as he's got 45 more minutes in the pro cage and one more UFC fight and over 12 more minutes in the UFC cage. Cam also has 5-round experience being the EFC bantamweight champion. The finish stats and durability is even, as both of these guys are fantastic finishers and neither one of them has ever lost as a pro. The striking, the advantage goes to Saaiman here, as he's got really sharp striking. He's explosive. He throws with power, and he has a mean left hook. He darts in and out, and he's kind of got a tricky style to deal with. I haven't seen much of Koslow's striking, but he seems calm there. He switches stances. He looks okay. But I mean, I've barely seen any tape on Koslow. I've seen one professional fight. It was against Jonathan Ortiz. I believe it was maybe even his pro debut. And it was filmed, like cage side by a phone, where like half of the fight, like the person who was filming the fight was like behind one of the pillars in the cage and you couldn't even see it. So this guy Koslow, I know nothing about him. The other two fights that I saw, he was an amateur and he was wearing shin guards. So I don't know what to think of this guy. But, the stats do tell us that this guy is getting 100% finish rate all by submission. And when I did see the amateur fights for Koslow, spent a lot of time in top position. Didn't seem to be like this overly aggressive submission over position grappler, where he was landing a lot of ground and pound and riding out a lot of minutes on top in the 3-minute amateur rounds. So, this guy Koslow is almost as experienced just in terms of pro fights as Saaiman is. And if I remember correctly, I think this guy's Koslow has got at least a 10-fight amateur career as well, which when both of you have 6 pro fights, the fact that this guy does have a 9-1 record as an AMI really does help out here. And he's fighting a lot of guys with amateur records in 2018, 2017 that are good records: 5-1, 6-1, 5-1, 7-2, 4-2, 1-0. So he's fighting some decent amateur competition. And the guys that he's fighting as a pro in Combat Night Pro is the promotion that he's been fighting in. 4-4, 1-1, 6-8, 2-7, 0-0, and 0-2. So there's not much there for us to lean on, but all first round submissions. And for those people who are going to say, without looking at the amateur record first, that, oh, this guy, who knows what his conditioning looks like? Well, he's went to decision 5 times as an AMI and won all 5 of them, I think. No, he did lose a split decision to Luis Gonzalez. So, we're talking about a 5-1 record in decisions as an amateur, where you're going 9 minutes instead of 15. So the guy's got decent conditioning too, but Saaiman's got 5-round conditioning. He did beat a 500 record guy for the EFC bantamweight championship. He's also got some decent competition too on the regional scene before getting to the UFC. So I barely see any tape of Koslow on the feet. But what I have seen from Cam does give Cam the big advantage here on the feet. And the grappling, I'll give that advantage to Koslow, because I haven't seen much from Cameron in terms of initiating grappling exchanges on the regional scene here. So I actually kind of like Koslow to be maybe the guy that wins more minutes in the grappling exchanges here. Steven is definitely going to want to get this fight to the ground. All of his pro wins are by first-round submission. Steven also had a long amateur career, going 10-1 and finishing 5 of his 10 wins by sub as well as an amateur. So 5 wins by sub as an amateur, 6 wins by sub as a pro. And he's obviously a dangerous grappler with good top control and ground and pound. Saaiman prefers to keep fights standing and does a solid job of achieving that objective by having a pretty good get-up game. The strength of schedule advantage I have to give to Saaiman. Koslow has fought nobodies as a pro. Saaiman has 5-round experience and has fought the better brand of competition on the regional scene. So Saaiman is 4 years younger. He's 1 inch taller. He's got 45 more minutes of pro cage time. He has the striking and the strength of schedule advantages. And Koslow is taking this fight on short notice. So Koslow has a 100% finish rate, all by submission, and he should have the grappling advantage here. I'm going to stay away from this fight. But I think it finishes inside the distance and Saaiman maybe gets a knockout after the first round. But look, I don't, there's barely any tape available on the kid that's coming in, Koslow. And Saaiman, while he looked fantastic in that Contender Series fight, and it was a super fun fight, he did get controlled in that 5-round championship fight in EFC. It went full 5 rounds, and it was against a guy that was 7-7 as a pro, I think. And I went and I looked through his record, this guy hadn't really beaten anybody either, So this is 2 very unknown quantities here, and I don't really want any of this. And if we look at the prop template here too, you guys, I want to bring this up. See, this is juiced up to minus 225 here. That is a 69.23% implied probability that this fight finishes inside the distance, according to the line. But bantamweight fights only finish inside the distance 49% of the time. So we're overpaying by about 20% based on that benchmark. And we have a very limited sample size of fights here. But like I say, this guy, Koslow, has been to decision 5 times as an amateur. So I would be very careful about laying that massive juice on the violence lines here. And, maybe just to be a contrarian, you go with the overs in this fight. But, I wouldn't be surprised if either of these guys got a finish. And I'm going to be staying away from it from a gambling standpoint. But I'm going to pick Cameron Saaiman to win this fight because he's not on short notice. And because he is the better striker here and has got a little bit more high-level experience. I'm going to pick him to win it by 2nd round knockout. And I will get the Make Picks page up here on Tapology so you guys can follow along with me and see who I'm picking in every fight. And it is going to be Cameron MSP Saaiman to knock out Steven Koslow, Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow in the 2nd round. So there we go. And that leaves us with the next fight of the night, which is going to be a really fun one. It's going to be Vinicius Salvador going up against Daniel Lacerda de Silva. Salvador's a big favorite, you guys. Minus 221 in this spot, going up against the 0-3 Lacerda at the UFC level, who is plus 186. The fight doesn't go to decision, is absolutely juiced to the tits at minus 600 here. A flyweight fight. And these flyweight fights, you guys, and this prop template with all the analytics for over-under bettors is available on Uncle Weezy's Patreon for $20 a month. But right now at minus 600, that is an implied probability of 85.71% that you're paying that this fight finishes inside the distance. But the flyweight metric is only 42% of flyweight fights that are 3 rounds since the year 2013 are finishing inside the distance. And even though it's only 42%, you're paying double that number at 85.71%. So that's how confident that these guys are going to finish inside the distance. And that's because 32 of their 33 combined pro fights have finished inside the distance. But let's get these stats up here. Oh, and by the way, yes, the Ovince St. Preux, Antonio Tricoli, my sources tell me that it was not a Tricoli injury that canceled this fight. This fight was canceled due to total lack of interest. I put that out on Twitter yesterday. So if you missed that on Twitter, total lack of interest is what canceled the Ovince St. Preux Antonio Tricoli fight. So we move on to the Vinicius Salvador versus Daniel Lacerda da Silva. So let me get my notes here because they're changing around these orders. And right now, the order doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm going to go in order of what UFC Stats is showing us right now. Okay, Salvador versus Lacerda. When it comes to the measurables, I have it even. Age, height, reach, virtually identical. Lacerda switches stances. Salvador is a southpaw. That gives a statistical edge to Daniel Lacerda here. The experience advantage goes to Vinicius Salvador. Vinicius has 3 more pro fights, over 50 more minutes in the pro cage, and he has 2.5 more years as a pro fighter. Lacerda has 2 more UFC level fights, but only 1 more minute of UFC cage time. When it comes to the finish stats and the durability, I've got it even for these guys. Both guys have 100% finish rates as professionals, and they've been finished in 7 of their 8 combined losses. So that is why the fight doesn't go to decision, is juiced to the tits at -600. Neither one of these guys is durable, and they're both absolutely savage finishers that just sell out to finish fights early. These guys both fight like they're triple parked. Both good hammers, both bad nails. The striking advantage goes to Salvador. Lacerda is a wild striker. He tries to take your head off, but he leaves massive openings. He blocks punches with his face. Lacerda has an absolutely hilarious 26.67% striking defense, while Salvador showed 62% striking defense in his debut against Shannon Ross. Salvador is very unpredictable. He throws from odd angles and with a diverse array of strikes and with a lot of power. Both guys are dangerous standing, but it's Vinicius who has 13 of his 14 pro wins by knockout, while for Daniel, he's got 5 of his 11 wins by knockout and 6 by sub. So Daniel's more of like an equal opportunity finisher, but this dude Vinicius, he really chases that knockout. And it looks like Vinicius is going to be the guy who's going to be a lot more comfortable standing and banging, as he's more likely to win minutes and moments while this fight is on the feet. But the grappling advantage I have to give to Lacerda. He's a very aggressive grappler, submission over position, and he chains his attempts together well. He got most of these submissions against very low-level competition on the Brazilian regional scene. 63% of Lacerda's UFC cage time has been spent in control time positions, so he's clearly comfortable there. While we saw Vinicius only attempt 1 takedown, and it was after Ross had hurt him, and he had successfully stopped the only takedown he faced. I think Lacerda is going to want this on the ground, and Vinicius is probably going to want this one standing. The strength of schedule I have even. These guys have only beaten really complete bums. Neither guy has a signature win, so I believe both guys are pretty much live here. But I mean, like, if I had to pick the signature win, it would be Shannon Ross for Vinicius Salvador on the Contender Series, and he looked fantastic in that fight. But when you go behind that fight and try to find one win that you would even think about giving a shit about, you'd need to look pretty hard, and you'd probably come up empty. And it's the same thing with Lacerda. There's just no wins that anybody would give a shit about. So, Vinicius, prior to beating Shannon Ross on the Contender Series, the last 2 wins, like Wallace Vampirino and Tarcisio Gomez. I mean, I think 2 of the 3 wins before that for Salvador were against 0-0 guys. So very low-level regional scene competition. And Vinicius looked great on the Contender Series, but I think both of these guys are basically going to fight like they're shot out of a cannon right off the bat. And I think violence is the way here, but it's all these violence lines are so juiced to the tits. They were opened at unbettable lines, and they've just gotten even more unbettable. So I'm going to be just sitting back enjoying this fight. There's no way I'm laying the kind of juice that you have to lay on Vinicius Salvador to bet him here. You're barely getting any kind of a break for an inside the distance bet. The bet is going to be Vinicius Salvador inside the distance, probably by a early second round knockout, I'm thinking. But I am not going to be betting this fight. There's just no value. There's no reason to trust Lacerda. If you're just fading Vinicius, I get it. because these guys maybe are the same level, but at least Vinicius did look phenomenal in his last fight. So, yeah, that pick is going to be Vinicius Salvador by second round knockouts. And that will move us on to the next fight. And I've got De Silva here. So Salvador by the second round knockout is what we want. And next, we've got Erik King Silva against downtown TJ Brown, my guy, one of the most innovative haircuts in the UFC. The guy's constantly bringing a new and exciting, unpredictable, terrible haircut to the cage. The haircut matches the fight IQ, the skills in filming commercials for adult toy stores is just about as good as his haircut game and just about as good as his fight IQ. God, TJ Brown, this guy has pissed me off so many times. It's really rough. I don't want to get emotionally invested in this fight, you guys. I really don't. But we got to break it down, don't we? So right now, the line on this fight is that Erik Silva is a slight favorite here at -115. TJ Brown, -105. The fight doesn't go to decision. Up at -180 for this one. And Silva and Brown are both primarily grapplers here. But the measurables advantage goes to TJ Brown as he's 3 years younger than Erik Silva. Erik Silva is making his UFC debut at the age of 35. That is a big red flag. So TJ's 3 years younger, has a 1-inch reach advantage. TJ also switches stances, and Silva is orthodox, so that's, an advantage for TJ. The experience advantage goes to TJ Brown. He's got 15 more professional fights, 125 more minutes in the pro cage, and over 3 more years as a pro fighter. He's also got the UFC experience advantage with 5 more fights at the UFC level, 80 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish stats and the durability, that edge goes to TJ Brown as well, as he's got the better career finish rate by a little bit, 81% for Brown, 77% for Silva. Both guys favor the sub over the knockout, but both have knockouts on their resume. Silva has been finished in his only pro losses, and Brown has been finished in 6 of 9 pro losses. So, these guys have been combined finished in 7 of 10 pro losses. Not a good look. And TJ's been finished 3 times by knockout and 3 times by submission. So he spreads it around in terms of the way that he loses. 3 knockouts, 3 submissions, 3 decisions. Neither guy is particularly durable here. The striking advantage, that definitely goes to TJ Brown. He's the much better kickboxer. He switches stances. He's got a 0.8 significant strike differential, and he throws around 2.5 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do. Silva's pretty much a pure grappler. If he doesn't get to this to the ground, TJ should win easily. Excuse me, guys. The grappling, I'm going to call the grappling even, okay? Both guys are solid grapplers. Silva's looked great on the regional scene, but it's against low-level dudes, while TJ has shared the cage with several UFC-level grapplers, and he's landed 21 takedowns while only yielding 10 as Brown, but he barely out-controls his opponents, so the efficiency really isn't there. It's a huge step up, though, for Erik Silva in terms of the level of grappling this kid has seen thus far in the cage. And until we see him against a guy of Brown's quality, it's hard to know how it will fare. Brown has shown 41% takedown defense at the UFC level. And in Silva's DWCS bout, he got 92% control time in that fight on only 1 takedown. And he finished with a ground and pound TKO just over 90 seconds in. So, if TJ Brown still can't stop takedowns, Erik Silva's absolutely live to win a ton of minutes in this fight because this is what he does. He takes dudes down, he controls them, he advances positions, and he looks for submissions. And if TJ is just, folding like a lawn chair every time Erik goes to take him down, just like he did in the Shahbazyan fight, well then, Erik Silva's absolutely live here. But the strength of schedule advantage, that's all TJ Brown. He faced the way better competition. It's not even close. So, on paper, TJ Brown is the side. He's 3 years younger than Erik Silva. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He's the much better striker that switches stances. He's got the UFC experience advantages. He's got the better career finish rate. He's the better striker. He's got the strength to schedule advantage. Silva's a solid grappler who's also a solid finisher, but he's a 35-year-old featherweight who started MMA in his late 20s. He's only fought low-level competition, and his coach is his dad. It's really hard to trust TJ Brown's fight IQ, but at a pick'em, there are simply too many advantages on paper to ignore here. I'll pick TJ Brown to win by decision. And, dude, in my opinion, doesn't mean anything, but, if he loses this fight, he's going to be a fucking laughingstock. Because, Silva's wins are over the MMA stalwarts, Ruben Lozano, Eric Radleem, Dan Vega, Edgar Cabello, and Anvar Boynazarov. And Anvar Boynazarov is a very good kickboxer, but a very, very undersized featherweight. The guy looks like he could easily make flyweight. And he's a pure kickboxer. He's got no ground game. So, this guy Silva, if he beats TJ Brown, it's by far the best win of his career. But this guy Brown, he's just not good. So I can't see really having money on either side of this fight. I think maybe what might be an interesting way to go here is just pick that the fight goes the distance, because both these guys suck and probably won't be able to finish anybody at the UFC level. That would maybe be the way I'd play it. But then, either one of them could easily suck enough to get finished here, and they have been finished in 7 of their 10 combined losses. So it feels like a giant stay away. But I'm going to pick TJ Brown to win this fight by decision. And that brings up the next fight. And if this is the next fight, it's a travesty of a sham of a mockery. It's a Travis sham mockery. Billy Quarantillo should at least be on the prelims here. The guy brings all action fights every single time. Really exciting fighter to watch against a very front-loaded, explosive fighter who's making his featherweight debut here in Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. So let me get the... we got Quarantillo at -160. We got Alexander Hernandez at +140. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting up at +105. Hang on just a second, guys. Let me see here. Yeah. All right, you guys. I have to get to my notes are all out of order, so I think maybe I'm down here now. Yes. Okay, so the measurables advantage in this fight is going to Alexander Hernandez, as he's a natural lightweight who's making that first cut down to 145. Alex is 3 years younger. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage. And he's going to be the bigger dude, but we really do need to see, especially if you're on that Hernandez side, you got to see how he looks on the scale. And if he does look like trash on the scale, Quarantillo is probably going to get bet up to -200 here, because, if he's going to have a rough weight cut against a fighter that puts on the pace, pressure, and volume that Quarantillo does, it's going to be a nightmare for him. The experience advantage goes to Billy Quarantillo here. He's got 2 more pro fights, almost 70 more minutes in the pro cage in comparison to Alex. And he's also got about 15 more minutes in the UFC cage, despite the fact that Hernandez has 2 more UFC level fights. The finish stats and durability advantage goes to Billy Quarantillo. Billy's got the better overall finish rate as a pro, 75% in comparison to 61% for Hernandez. And he's also got the better finish rate at the UFC level, as he's finished 4 of his 5 UFC wins, while Alexander Hernandez has finished 3 of 5 UFC wins. Billy's also been way more durable, only being finished once in 4 pro losses, and he's never been finished in the UFC, while Hernandez has been finished in 3 of 4 UFC losses. The striking advantage goes to Quarantillo. I love the pace, pressure, and volume that Billy brings. Billy has the much better significant strike differential, +1.94 for Billy, positive 0.03 for Hernandez. He's got the better striking accuracy, 59% for Quarantillo, 39 or 38% for Hernandez, and he throws way more volume in comparison to his opponents. Hernandez doesn't throw that much. I mean, he throws 10.49, but Quarantillo is throwing 13.1. So the significant strike differential in terms of volume is definitely on the Quarantillo side. But Alex definitely has the better power numbers. 0.61 knockdowns per 15 minutes compared to 0.34 for Billy. And he's got the much better striking defense at 58% in comparison to 40% for Billy Quarantillo. I think Quarantillo's forward pressure is really going to frustrate Alex if he doesn't find a way to get Billy's respect early in this fight. Both guys are really at their best in the striking when they are the one that's pressuring. But Billy's been much more effective at pressuring thus far. Alex will probably be the better moment winner early in this fight, but Billy gets better as the fight goes on, and he's got very underrated power because once he starts to smell blood in the water and he gets you backing up, he starts swinging for the fences, and he melts dudes late in fights with that power that he has. People don't think of Billy Quarantillo as a powerful striker, but I'm telling you, it's the combination of everything that he does well that when he starts to break you down, when he can smell that you don't have anything left in the tank, that's when he really starts unloading, and that's when he starts finishing fights. The grappling advantage I got to give to Quarantillo here, but it kind of remains to be seen how he's going to deal with the bigger, stronger guy in Hernandez here. Even though Alex's takedown percent and takedown defense are superior to Billy's, it's obviously Billy who's spending way more time grappling, and he finds plenty of success winning minutes in the grappling exchanges. Billy outcontrols his opponents 36% to 16%, even though he has 4 less takedowns than his opponents do. Obviously, Billy's been very efficient on the ground as a result of that. Hernandez is going to be the bigger guy, though, and he's been the more efficient wrestler thus far, and that's been up a weight class at 155. So even though 80% of Hernandez's fights have stayed standing, it's entirely possible that we could see a successful wrestling-heavy approach here from Alex, but it might be difficult to push that pace for a full 15 after his first cut down to 145 pounds. The cut worries me because Billy puts on a hellacious pace, and if that cut doesn't go well for Alex, Billy could absolutely break him, and Billy's very durable, so he's definitely the fighter that can weather the early storm here. The strength of schedule advantage goes to Alexander Hernandez. Alex has a huge strength of schedule advantage, much better ratio and experience level overall, especially in his wins. Hernandez debuted against Beneil Dariush and finished him in less than 60 seconds, so he had to stay in the deep end of the pool from there on out. Quarantillo's signature win thus far is Gabriel Benitez, so don't go putting Billy Q in the top 15 just yet. If this cut goes well for Alex, he's definitely live and very live to land a big shot early in the fight. So, in summary, Billy Q's got the experience advantage. He's got the finish stats and the durability advantages. He's got the striking accuracy and the striking differential advantages and the grappling advantage in terms of being the better minute winner thus far in their UFC careers. But Alex, the Great Ape Hernandez, is 3 years younger. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage, 2 more UFC level fights. He has the power and the striking defense advantages and the strength of schedule advantage. I love the under 2.5 here at plus money. With the pressure and pace Billy puts on, if Alex has a bad cut, Billy will break him in the second or third. And Alex's power is going to be a problem for Billy early in this fight, especially when he's got a 40% striking defense. I have to lean with the pace that Billy Q brings, but I'll reserve final judgment until I see how Alex looks on the scales. But for now, I'm assuming the worst about this cut, and I'll say that Billy Q gets a late second or an early third round knockout. I'm going to say third round knockout, but if Alexander Hernandez looks good on the scales, like if he weighs in early, looks good, looks the part, I might put a little sprinkle on Alexander Hernandez by first round knockout, even though Quarantillo is very durable. I like Hernandez's power. Dude's got serious power in his right hand. But yeah, I'm going to call a Quarantillo ground and pound knockout. And we'll see. Yeah, well, it's round 3. Billy Quarantillo round 3 is a very, very difficult man to deal with. Yes, so we will go with Quarantillo round 3. Love the under 2.5 here. One of my favorite bets of the week at plus money. All right. And then that brings up the next fight, which is going to be Chris, the Action Man Curtis, squaring off against Joaquin New Mansa Buckley. All right. So let me get that banner up there for you guys. Yes. The Action Man right now is plus 140. Joaquin Buckley minus 160. The fight doesn't go to decision, up at minus 180 here. All right. So let's get these stats up on the screen for you guys. All available on Uncle Weezy's Patreon for $5 a month. The measurables advantage between these two gentlemen is definitely going to go to Joaquin Buckley. He's 7 years younger than the Action Man. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage, and he's a southpaw. In addition to that, Curtis is an undersized middleweight, and he has a ton of fights at 170, while Buckley is the natural middleweight and will be the bigger, stronger dude here. The experience advantage is going to go to Chris Curtis. Chris has 18 more professional fights. He's got 290 more minutes in the pro cage and over 5 more years as a pro. Buckley has 3 more fights at the UFC level and almost 25 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish stats and durability advantage goes to Buckley for the finish stats and to Chris Curtis for durability. Joaquin has the better career finish rate at 73%. Compared to 58% for Curtis. And he's also been a slightly better UFC finish rate at 80% for Joaquin, 75% for the Action Man. Both of these guys pretty much only get knockouts. So if you like violence in this fight, maybe bet the fight ends by KO to get a better line than what they're giving you for just the fight doesn't go to decision. Curtis is very durable, only being finished twice in 38 professional fights. And one of those finishes was against Ray Cooper III, and that was the second time Chris had fought that night. So that's the only time he was knocked out in his entire career. Joaquin's been finished in 2 of 3 UFC losses and in 3 of 5 pro losses. So definitely Chris Curtis is going to be the much more durable guy here. When it comes to the striking, I'm calling it even, okay? The UFC metrics are very close in this matchup. Now, Joaquin's got the superior significant strike differential at positive 0.19 compared to negative 0.39 for Curtis. Knockdowns per 15 minutes, 1.16 for Buckley, 0.85 for Curtis. The striking defense is a little bit better for Buckley, and Buckley throws 3.46 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, while Curtis throws 3.2 less significant strike attempts than his opponents do. Curtis seems to do more with less, though, when he is in these stand-up striking exchanges, as he's landing 6 significant strikes a minute to only 3.61 for Buckley. So Curtis has never been knocked down at the UFC level, while Buckley's been dropped 3 times. And Curtis seems to be the much better minute winner at distance, landing 58.35% of his significant strike attempts, while Buckley throws a ton of volume, but he's got terrible accuracy at less than 33%. So Buckley couldn't hit water if he fell out of a boat, but he can make up for that horseshit accuracy by having a ton of power. And power can absolutely change a fight. That's what we call moment winning here, is losing the fight up until you win it. Kind of like that Derek Lewis approach. Very low volume for Lewis, while Buckley is very high volume in comparison to his opponents. But Buckley, he can swing and miss and miss and miss, but when he does hit, he can separate you from your consciousness. But yeah, definitely, what I love about Curtis is his ability to win minutes at range with his accuracy, with his good defense, and then also use that durability to maybe absorb some big shots and then counter and wind up knocking out his opponent because he's more durable than them. When it comes to the grappling, I'm calling it even. Curtis has faced several top-notch middleweight grapplers thus far, yet he's only been controlled for 4.5% of his 77.5 minutes in the UFC cage. And he stopped all 32 takedown attempts he has faced thus far in the UFC. So it's safe to assume that Curtis, has shot, and it's safe to assume that he's not going to get taken down. And Curtis also has shot 0 takedowns in the UFC. So he wants this fight standing. So I believe that this fight remains standing unless one of these guys gets dropped by a punch or a kick. The strength of schedule advantage, that's Curtis. Curtis has definitely fought, beaten, and lost to the much better win-loss ratioed competition thus far in the UFC. And the experience level of both of these guys' opponents has been about the same. So Curtis has the overall experience advantage. He's been the more durable fighter. He's the better minute winner at distance striking range, and he's been excellent at keeping fights where he's most comfortable. And he's faced the UFC competition with the much better records. Buckley, though, is 7 years younger than Chris. That's significant. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage, and he's a southpaw. He has the UFC experience advantage and the slightly better finish rates, both as a pro and in the UFC. He has several striking metric advantages as well, including power and significant strike differential. I like this matchup, though, for Chris Curtis. He's the better minute winner. He digs to the body. He has the ability to finish fights late after he breaks his opponent's defenses down. I love that Chris is durable because Buckley's best chance is landing a big shot here, but Curtis has only been finished once by knockout in 38 pro fights. I like Curtis to win this fight, and I like him to win it by third-round knockout here. And I think it's very important to note that the finish-only prop, which I bet at plus 150 here for Chris the Action Man Curtis, nobody stops Chris Curtis. And we got Joaquin Buckley getting stopped by 3 of 5 losses, all by knockout. I love the fact that I can get Chris Curtis not only as plus money on the money line here, but at plus money for the finish only prop when he's finished 3 of his 4 UFC opponents and probably should have finished Rodolfo Vieira, but Vieira just kind of toughed it out, took an ass beating for 3 rounds, and he basically wanted to quit from all those body blows. Joaquin Buckley's not really known for great conditioning, and once Curtis starts ripping that body, I think in that 3rd round, he's going to be looking for the door. And I think Chris Curtis, the Action Man, is going to help him find it. So love Chris Curtis to win this fight. I'm picking him to win by 3rd round knockout. And I love at plus 150, the Chris Curtis decision equals no action prop. I believe it's on Bet Online that I bet that. Okay, so let's get that up on the Tapology here. We got Chris the Action Man Curtis beating New Mansa Joaquin Buckley by 3rd round knockout. This is going to be a fun fight. Can't wait for that one. Some really great matchmaking on this card. And the next fight is going to be Edmen Shahbazyan squaring off against Dalcha champion Lungiambula. I haven't seen Edmen in a minute here, so it's going to be interesting to see how he bounces back from the current 3-fight losing streak that he is on here. So we've got to get these stats up there. I've got to get you your banner so you know where the lines are here. And right now we've got Edmen at minus 275. Dalcha, the underdog, at plus 235. The fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up to minus 230. All right. Whew. An hour and 3 minutes in. Hang on just a second here. Let me check something else. 63 of you guys hanging out in here with me live. Hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Join the Patreon if you haven't already. We got a few more fights to break down here, man. This is a great card, so let's keep getting into it. So we've got my notes up here. I've got a measurables advantage going to Edmen Shahbazyan here as he's 10 years younger and 6 inches taller than Dalcha Lungiambula. It's Dalcha with a 2-inch reach advantage, but that, in my opinion, is absolutely meaningless because his back is as wide as the broadside of a barn, but he has the opposite of long arms. So I don't really think Dalcha has like an arm length advantage here. He's just got the much, much, much wider back. The guy looks like he could pull a plow. I think Edmen's going to be the longer guy at range here, and he's definitely taller, and he's definitely 10 years younger. So the experience advantage, though, goes to Dalcha. He's got 2 more professional fights He's got 80 more minutes in the pro cage and almost 3 more years as a pro fighter. And he also has a couple more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Edmen, even though Edmen has 2 more UFC level fights. The finish stats and durability advantage goes to Shahbazyan here, as he's got the way better finish rate as a pro. 91% finish rate for Edmen, 54% finish rate for Dalcha, and at the UFC level, he's finishing better at an 80% rate and compared to 50% for Dalcha. Neither guy has been durable. However, it's still Edmen with the slightly better metrics, being finished less as a pro, 67% for Edmen, 80% for Dalcha. And at the UFC level, Edmen's been finishing 2 of 3 losses, and Dalcha's been finishing 3 of 4 losses. Striking advantage goes to Shahbazyan. Both of these guys land less significant strikes per minute than their opponents do, and they also throw less volume than their opponents do. But it's Edmen who's more accurate at 50.5% compared to 44.8% for Dalcha. And he's been a lot more powerful, as he's landing 1.09 knockdowns per 15 minutes in comparison to 0.25 for Dalcha. Edmen has never been dropped at the UFC level, while Dalcha is allowing a 0.5 knockdowns per 15 minutes. Dalcha does have the better striking defense at 54% compared to 46% for Edmen, but Edmen is the much better range striker in this matchup, and it really isn't even close. The grappling advantage, though, it does go to Dalcha. He's a judo black belt, crazy strong in the clinch. He's bricked the fuck up, and if he gets his arms around you, you're basically going for a ride. That muscle mass is a double-edged sword, though, because if he grapples too much and tries to use that brute strength to move you around, he's likely to gas out and get finished later in the fight. The grappling metrics are actually similar in terms of the total time spent in control time positions and takedowns per 15 minutes for both of these guys, but it's Dalcha who's winning a higher percentage of the control time positions, and he's going to get the grappling more. He's going to the grappling a lot more consistently than Edmen is. As we see, Dalcha's got 18 takedown attempts in 6 fights, and Edmen's got 27 in 8 fights. But if we go a little bit further into the numbers, you can see here that in this fight, Edmen attempted 21 takedowns and got 8 of them against Darren Stewart. But if you remove that fight from his career, he's really only 2 of 6 on his takedown attempts in the other 7 fights. So it's Dalcha who's just going to the takedown attempts a little more consistently here. As you see, he's attempting a takedown in every single fight, and the only one he didn't get a takedown against was up at 205 against a guy named Magomed Ankalaev. So let's see where so the grappling metrics are actually similar in terms of the total time spent in control time positions, but it's Dalcha who's winning a higher percentage of those control time positions. So outside of the Darren Stewart fight, Edmen hasn't successfully grappled much, but he's been working on improving that wrestling, and he's still only 25 years old, so this kid could absolutely be still making improvements. The strength of schedule advantage goes to Shahbazyan, as he's got a huge strength of schedule advantage here, fighting, beating, and losing to the better win-loss ratio, more experienced UFC competition. So Edmen's 10 years younger than Dalcha. He's 6 inches taller, and he's longer. He's got the finish stats, the striking, and the strength of schedule advantages here, while Dalcha has the experience and the grappling advantages. I think Dalcha's kind of, first round or bust, but he does carry that power later on in fights here as well. But in order to stay safe, I think he's going to have to grapple early. Edmen's the much better, younger, faster, and more powerful boxer. So Dalcha needs to get a takedown and work hard for a finish, because he can't push a grappling heavy pace for long without gassing out. And Edmen has got just so much power on the feet. But Dalcha's, taking people down, and he's getting those takedowns, but he's not winning a bunch of minutes on the ground. And I think he's going to need to do that against Edmen. But Dalcha, whether he grapples or whether this fight stays on the feet, everything that he does is explosive. So he's just got to find ways to win moments in this fight. And if he does that, he can knock out Edmen Shahbazyan. He could even win enough minutes here if he gets him in trouble and lands the heavier shots in the fight. But Edmen's just going to be the much more skilled boxer here. He's much younger, and he's beaten much better brand of competition. You look at the ratio in their wins, 1.39 for Shahbazyan, 0.29 for Dalcha Lungiambula. So those wins come over an 0-4 Daquan Townsend and a 2-5 Marcus Perez. So the combined UFC records of the guys that he's beaten are 2 wins and 9 losses. So yeah, Dalcha's not beating, UFC level guys. And, a lot of people, don't be that guy where it's y'all must have forgot, because Antonio Jones, he goes out there and dick saws him in 40 seconds in his Contender Series fight. Then he gets 8 takedowns and 600 seconds of control time against Darren Stewart, beats that veteran. Then he shaves Charles Bird's ass in 38 seconds. Then he shaves Jack Marshman's ass in 72 seconds. Then he goes out there and he dick saws the 14-7 Brad Tavares in 150 seconds, just melts him when Dricus du Plessis couldn't melt him in 3 full rounds. This guy is very, very dangerous, and he's lost to, great grapplers in Brunson and Hermanson and an explosive sniper like striker in Nasruddin Umavov. But this is a different matchup here, and he's much better than this Lungiambula guy. So I'm going to pick Edmen to win this one by second round knockout. But Dalcha's live here, and he's explosive. He could land a big shot here and have Shahbazyan in trouble, but I think we're going to see improvements from Shahbazyan, and working with the great Edmen Tarverdyan is definitely a feather in his cap here, but he's also been spreading his wings and getting out to other places besides Glendale Fighting Club, which is basically where he grew up. So, maybe now that he's out there spreading his wings, he was working out there with AKA for a minute, working on that wrestling. So, I think we're going to see improvements out of this kid, and I'm picking Edmen Shahbazyan to win this one by second round knockout. So let me get that one in here. Shahbazyan, KO, round 2. And then we've got the 18-year-old prospect, Raul Rosas Jr., squaring off against Jay the Joker Perrin here. Let me get the banner up for you guys. Rosas is minus 230. We've got Jay Perrin at plus 195. The fight doesn't go to decision. Sitting at minus 140. Hang on just a second, you guys. All right. Yes, my guy asked me what gym is Edmen at, not the head movement guy. Yeah, the head movement guy is where he's been his whole life, because Edmen is Armenian, and so is Tarverdyan. So, that he's with Ronda Rousey's coach, the head movement guy, Edmen Tarverdyan. So, yeah. But, like I said, he is starting to get around a little bit more now. And now that he's 25, he can start to spread out. He shouldn't be at that gym his whole life. He needs to learn from a bunch of different people. But in the banners, yeah. So we got Rosas is 18 years old here, and he's a big favorite. So let me scroll back and find my notes, because I thought this was going to be earlier in the card. But they're trying to push this kid here, and they got him a guy that's been 0-3 at the UFC level right now in Jay Perrin. So I think they're trying to find him a win. But, Jay Perrin is a tough out for anybody. So I don't know how this fight is going to go, but that measurables advantage definitely goes to Raul Rosas here. He's going to be the bigger dude. He's 2 inches taller than Jay. He's thicker than Jay. And Raul's also 11 years younger than Jay. But Jay's checking in, and he's checking in at only 18 years of age. Both of these guys are switch stance fighters, but it's Jay who has a 2-inch reach advantage in this matchup. The experience advantage goes to Jay Perrin. He's got 10 more pro fights, 140 more minutes in the pro cage, about 7.5 more years as a pro fighter, and Rosas' pro career only spans 1 year at this point. Jay has the UFC experience advantage with 2 more fights and 30 more minutes in the UFC cage. Rosas has got the better finish stats. Jay Perrin, the better durability here. Raul has an 84% finish rate as a pro, while for Perrin, it's 60%. Perrin has 0 UFC wins, and in Raul's Dana White Contender Series win, he won by unanimous decision, which was his first pro win that he did not finish. It remains to be seen whether Rosas will finish fights at the UFC level, and it's going to be tough to finish Jay Perrin. Jay is extremely durable. He's got a cast iron chin. He's only been finished once. It was by a guillotine choke in the third round of a fight he was dominating back in 2017. The striking advantage, that's Jay Perrin all day. He's a well-rounded fighter, and he's going up against a pure grappler here. So Jay has got excellent boxing. He varies his targets. He's excellent at digging to the body. He's got the conditioning and pace to wear you out over a full 3 rounds. He almost stopped Quillang at the end of the third round of his last fight, landing some big shots in the last 10 seconds. Rosas almost never strikes. However, I'm really impressed with how he uses his striking to set up his entries on his takedowns. Raul walks forward, throwing a lot of volume. He backs you up to the fence, and then he shoots for takedowns. If you can't get this kid off of you and you allow him to back you up, it's going to be tough to get him off of you. The longer this fight stays on the feet, the better Jay is going to look here. And if Raul tires himself out with unsuccessful takedown attempts, the way Jay digs the body will really affect the young man's gas tank. And we're going to talk grappling here, but I just realized I left some stats that I had compiled in the other room. I'm going to go grab them real quick. Give me 1 second. Thank you for your patience. Now, I compiled these when I was watching tape on Raul because Raul's a pure grappler. He sells out for the grappling, and he excels at keeping his fights in control time positions where he's the most comfortable. Jay's a good wrestler in his own right. He's good at mixing in takedown to win minutes, and he does a good job of getting back up when his opponents do take him down. Jay trains with Merab Dvalishvili, and that is going to be a big advantage for him as Raul and Merab have similar styles. Raul's Dana White Contender Series fight was in control time positions a total of 834 out of 900 seconds. That's 92.67%. And if he gets that type of fight again, he will get the dub here as well. Raul has 9 rounds as a pro fighter that I've taped. And this is how many seconds into those 9 rounds it took for him to initiate the grappling. So against Eduardo Velasquez, 4:54 of round 1, so 6 seconds in, he shoots his takedown and gets it. Versus Joel Pena in round 1, he shoots a takedown at 4:57, so 3 seconds in. Against Cisco Villanueva, round 1, 4:53 mark, 7 seconds in, he shoots his first takedown. Versus Jose Peñalosa, round 1, 4:56 mark, 4 seconds into round 1, he shoots that takedown and gets it. Against Peñalosa in round 2, 5 seconds into round 2, he shoots a takedown and he gets it. Against Porto Carrero, 4:53 round of round 1, shoots that takedown, gets it. And then on Dana White's Contender Series against Mondo Gutierrez, 4:42 of round 1, he shoots a takedown, so 18 seconds. It took him to shoot that first takedown. In round 2, 4:47 mark, so 13 seconds in, he shot that round 2 takedown. And in round 3, his opponent initiated the grappling after Raul just walked him down and pressured him. So he got it. So he got Mondo to shoot, which is what he wanted. So yes, Raul Rosas is unproven. Yes, he's fought cans. Yes, he's completely one-dimensional as far as we know at this point. Inexperienced, hasn't beaten anybody. All that shit is true. But what is also true is that this is the style you want a pure grappler to fight. You want him using his striking only as a means to set up his grappling entries. And because of that, when he is striking, you want him walking forward like a zombie, pressuring, backing his opponents up to the cage so that he can shoot those double legs and that they can't sprawl. So this is a perfect style. Raul Rosas Jr., for a one-dimensional 18-year-old grappler, is fighting the absolute perfect style that he needs to fight in order to suck his opponents into the type of fight where he's going to be the most successful. But Jay Perrin has got very good takedown defense and a very good get-up game. And if Raul Rosas Jr. doesn't have the ability to hold this guy down, it's just going to be a matter of time before Jay finds that chin. So I could see Raul Rosas Jr. winning this fight. Absolutely. I could see him maybe even submitting Jay Perrin. We're going to find out how good this kid is on the ground. But if he struggles taking down Jay and holding him down, he can win 10 minutes of this fight in control time positions, but still lose it on the judges' scorecards because it'll probably be Jay that's doing much more damage on the feet. So it's a very, very interesting stylistic matchup. Raul Rosas, a pure grappler. Jay Perrin, a very well-rounded fighter who's not spectacular anywhere. Well, I would say his cardio is pretty fucking spectacular. His boxing is very good. But Jay Perrin is at no deficits anywhere. And that's a very good thing because if you're a smart, experienced fighter with 5-round experience like Jay Perrin has, he can go to that toolbox, that well-rounded toolbox, and pick out the tools that work best for this particular matchup. And his conditioning is going to be on point, and his wrestling is going to be on point with the boys that he's training with there over at Syndicate. So my pick is going to be Jay Perrin to win this fight by 3rd round knockout because I really do believe that we're going to find out what this kid Rosas Jr. is made of. That chin of his is huge, and Jay probably isn't going to have a very hard time finding it. So I think that Jay's going to get the job done here, and I think he could even get it done because of that fantastic conditioning, because of that endless gas tank, and because of that durability. I think he could potentially break Raul Rosas Jr. late and get a 3rd round finish here. But I just want to say, I like what I've seen out of Rosas on the tape. You know, you crush cans, but you crush them the right way. That's what Rosas Jr. has done. So I'm going to be interested to see how Perrin deals with the pressure and the nonstop wrestling and position over submission grappling attack of Raul Rosas Jr. But the pick is going to be Jay Perrin by 3rd round knockout. So let me get that up here on the Tapology page. Jay Perrin winning by KO in round number 3 is my prediction, and I have a 1-unit bet on the Jay Perrin money line at plus 200. All right, and then the next fight is going to be Jairzinho Biggie Boy Rozenstruik matching up against Chris Daukaus. What a fun heavyweight fight this is going to be. Definitely a very striker versus striker matchup here that we have, and a couple of knockout artists to boot. So it's going to be a really fun fight. So give me just a second here to get these stats up. Give me just a second, you guys. Biggie Boy, minus 172. Chris Daukaus, plus 147. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 325. So we've got measurables as being even here, as Chris is 1.5 years younger. He's 3 to 4 inches taller than Biggie Boy. They got Biggie Boy listed at 6'2". It's bullshit. He's like 5'10", 5'11". And Biggie Boy's got the 2-inch reach advantage here. The experience advantage goes to Biggie Boy, as he's got 50 more minutes in the pro cage and 1.5 more years as a pro fighter, despite the fact that Chris has 1 more pro fight. So Chris has been a little more active as a pro, but Biggie also has the UFC experience advantage with 4 more fights and 65 more minutes in the UFC cage. When it comes to the finish stats and the durability, I've got that even. Both guys have finished 11 of 12 wins by KO, and both have 92% finish rates. Chris has been finishing all 5 of his pro losses and in both of his UFC losses, while Biggie Boy's been knocked out in 2 of 4 UFC losses. So I'd say that Biggie Boy's got the slight durability edge here, but both of these guys are savage finishers. When it comes to the striking, I've got advantage Daukaus when it comes to the minute winning, and I've got advantage Biggie Boy when it comes to the moment winning. Chris has done much better winning the minutes at the UFC level, as he's got the better significant strike differential, positive 2.45 compared to negative 0.44 for Biggie Boy. He's got the better accuracy at 50.7% compared to 45.6% for Rozenstruik. The volume differential, Chris is throwing 2.45 more significant strike attempts than his opponents do, while for Biggie Boy, it's about 0.2 more. And the striking defense is 59% for Daukaus, and it's only 45.6% for Biggie Boy. So Chris also has the far superior knockdowns per 15 minutes at 4.02 knockdowns per 15 minutes compared to 1.03 for Jairzinho Rozenstruik. But it's Jairzinho, even though he doesn't have the better numbers on paper, he's the one that relies on landing that one big shot. As he's 6-0 in the UFC when he lands a knockdown, and he's 0-4 when he doesn't. So if you think that Jairzinho Rozenstruik lands one knockout, bet him to win. And if you think Daukaus, is going to land a knockdown, then he's probably going to win. Because I think Daukaus, in his 4-2 in the UFC, I think he's 3-0 when he lands a knockdown, and he's 1-2 when he doesn't. So these guys are both very powerful, but once Biggie touches you, you fall and the fight is over. He's got the death touch. All three of fights where Daukaus has a knockdown, he's landed 2 knockdowns. So you can get knocked down and get back up and keep fighting by Daukaus. If Jairzinho knocks you down, the doctor is going to be in the cage looking at you with the little flashlight. So I think that Rozenstruik does have that death touch. He's got that power. And another stylistic thing I like about the striking here, this is orthodox versus orthodox. And if you watch Jairzinho early in his UFC career, it's that jab that sets everything up. And he was, until that fight against Overeem, where he lost the majority of that fight until landing that big shot with like 10 seconds left in the 5th round. What you notice there is that Overeem is an orthodox fighter, but he fought that entire fight southpaw. And that was so that he didn't have to deal with the jab of Jairzinho Rozenstruik. He didn't want Rozenstruik setting up his right hand by being able to land that jab. But Chris Daukaus is going to be dealing with that jab because he does not fight southpaw. So I do like Jairzinho to be able to use that jab and set up that power right hand, while Daukaus will probably be a little bit faster, but Rozenstruik is definitely more of a kickboxer. He just throws a lot more kicks than Daukaus does. So I think Jairzinho will be a little more powerful. I think he matches Daukaus' speed, but I think he does a better job of maintaining distance with those kicks. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and he's got the better death touch. So I do like Jairzinho on the feet here. The grappling advantage goes to Daukaus. Chris is the better submission grappler, but neither one of these guys has even so much attempted a takedown in the UFC. That being said, Biggie has been controlled for over 25% of his 87 minutes in the UFC cage. So if Daukaus does have any offensive grappling in his back pocket, this would be the fucking time to use it, okay? Biggie has respectable 75% takedown defense, but he's undersized as a heavyweight, as is Chris Daukaus. So Chris could win some minutes here in the striking with his volume, but he could also win some minutes here in the grappling if he just chooses to try. But he's never tried. So even though Daukaus is the better submission grappler, I don't even know if it means anything here. The strength of schedule, slight edge Biggie Boy, as both of these guys have fought really good competition overall. Jairzinho has an edge in terms of fighting the more experienced competition and beating the more experienced guys. So this fight definitely screams violence. 12 of their 16 combined UFC fights have finished under 1.5 rounds, 75%. That's like a minus 300 implied betting line there. Chris is 1.5 years younger. He's 4 inches taller. He's got the better minute winning and potentially speed advantages on the feet. And he has the grappling advantage, while Jairzinho has a 2-inch reach advantage, the experience overall and in the UFC. He's got the better kickboxing, and he's got the better death touch potential. And he's also faced the better UFC competition. I like Biggie to get the second round knockout here. It's orthodox versus orthodox, and Biggie Boy sets up his power right with a stiff jab, and that will be open for business against Chris. And I also like Jairzinho's ability to manage distance with his kicks as Chris mostly relies on his hands. So, yeah, the pick, you guys, for this one is going to be Jairzinho, Biggie Boy Rozenstruik to win this fight by second round knockout. And I've got a total of 2.15 units on this fight. 1 unit on the under 1.5 at plus 114, and 1.15 units on the under 1.5 as well at minus 115. But I got it for 1.15 units at minus 115, and then the price dropped and it went to plus 114. So I figured I'd hit it again, and then it went all the way back up. I think now at this point it's around minus 150 for the under 1.5. So I beat a lot of line movement there. But and these guys can start a little bit slow. It's happened before, but I do see somebody getting knocked out here in under 1.5 rounds. Both these guys got a shit ton of power. Both these guys prefer to stand and bang, and both these guys don't particularly like to go the full 5 or the full 3. So I do see this one finishing inside the distance, and I see my guy Biggie Boy being the more skilled striker getting this one done. But what a heavyweight battle here to set up the last 5 fights of the night, I believe. Yes, and the main card, which is going to be kicked off by Bryce Thug Nasty Mitchell at plus 114, facing off against Ilia Topuria at minus 134. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 130 for this fight. So let's get these stats up on the screen and the notes. And we've got the measurables advantage going to Bryce Mitchell here. Ilia is 3 years younger than Bryce, but both of these guys are young, undefeated studs in their prime. Bryce is 3 inches taller, has a 1-inch reach advantage, and he's the southpaw in this southpaw versus orthodox matchup. Let's also keep in mind that Topuria had a botched weight cut back in January against Charles Jourdain, and he was forced to move up to 155 to fight Jay Herbert in March as a result of that botched weight cut. This is his return now to 145 to fight Bryce. So we have to be prepared for the possibility that Topuria might not be able to make 145 anymore. So let's see how he looks on the scale before we bet him. The experience advantage is going to go to Bryce Mitchell, as he's got 3 more professional fights, 50 more minutes in the pro cage, and 3 more months as a pro fighter. He also has the UFC experience advantage with 2 more fights and over 50 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish stats and durability advantage goes to Topuria. Ilia is a savage finisher. He's finished 91% of his 12 wins and 3 of his 4 UFC wins. Bryce depends entirely on the submission to finish fights, while Topuria is more diverse. Ilia has crazy good grappling, but what separates him from Bryce is the one-punch knockout power. His KOs of Jackson, Herbert, and Goncalves, where the stuff dreams are made of. Neither guy has ever been finished, but I still have to give the durability edge to Mitchell because his conditioning and pacing are better. And Bryce will be very likely to break Ilia if this goes to the 3rd round, especially if Ilia has a bad weight cut. If a power drill to the nutsack didn't finish Bryce Mitchell, then he must be durable as hell. Those country boys are fucking tough, you guys. The striking advantage goes to Topuria. Bryce might be able to stay long and use kicks to keep distance at range and win minutes, but there's no doubt that while this fight is on the feet, it will be Ilia who's landing the more explosive and dangerous shots here. Ilia has 2 knockdowns in 4 UFC fights, and he's landing a knockdown in almost 2.5% of the significant strikes that he lands. Ilia rips to the body, which makes it hard to take him down. Both of these guys spend less than 50% of their UFC cage time at striking range, but while it's there, I see Ilia doing better and being a lot more dangerous. And he's short. He's going to be much shorter, especially at 155 if he fights back up there next time. But even at 145, he's 3 inches shorter on paper than Mitchell, but it might even be more than that. But because of that, he's just been turning those hips and digging to the body. And he's digging to the body, bringing those hands down, and then going back up to the top to get the kill shot, and it's working beautifully for him right now. So yeah, I see Ilia doing better in the striking exchanges. When it comes to the grappling, I've got it even as well. Both of these guys are absolute studs on the ground. Mitchell has the edge in control time 4 at 55.4% compared to 42.4% for Topuria. Takedown percentage a little bit better for Mitchell at 53% compared to 46%. The takedowns for 15 minutes a little bit better for Mitchell, 3.4 compared to 3.15, but they're both excellent. It's Ilia, though, who's attempting more submissions at 2.63 per 15 minutes compared to 1.89 for Mitchell. And he allows less control time to his opponents at 11.2% compared to 19.1% for Bryce Mitchell. And he's got better takedown defense at 100% takedown defense for Topuria, while it's only 33% for Thug Nasty. In Bryce's last 4 UFC fights, though, he's been unbelievably dominant in the grappling exchanges, amassing 78% control time for and allowing 1.2% control time against. So he's spending about 80% of his fights in control time positions, and he's winning about 97% of those control time positions. So incredible performances lately from Bryce Mitchell in terms of just completely blanketing his opponents and winning all the minutes on the ground. He's 15 of 21 on his takedown attempts is Bryce Mitchell in these last 4 fights, and he even landed a knockdown against Edson Barbosa. And in the first round, was 50-50 on the striking exchanges with them. In Bryce's first 2 UFC fights, grapplers Tyler Diamond and Bobby Moffitt gave him a run for his money, and those fights were very, very close. So obviously a grappler of Topuria's quality could still be a problem for Bryce, but those fights were 4 years ago, and he's improved a lot since then. Mitchell here, as he's got more UFC fights. He was in the Ultimate Fighter House, and he's fought twice as experienced UFC competition in comparison to Ilia. Topuria has fought the better win-loss ratio guys thus far, though. So Bryce, 3 inches taller, 1 inch reach advantage. He's a southpaw. He's got the overall and UFC experience advantages, and he's been savage at winning minutes on the ground as of late. Plus, he's fought the more experienced competition at the UFC level. And for Ilia, it's 3 years younger. He has the better and more diverse finish stats. He has the power and the striking defense advantages. I'm very interested in this fight as a fan. I'm waiting to see Ilia Topuria on the scale, and if he looks bad, I'm probably going to get to a Bryce moneyline bet. But this fight, for now, I'm just assuming that Ilia has trouble on the scales, and if that happens, I think Bryce Mitchell is probably going to win a decision here. But if Ilia looks good on the scales, I'm picking him, because he's just so much more dangerous on the feet than Bryce. And while Bryce has dominated Edson Barbosa, Andre Philly, Charles Rosa, and Matt Sales on the ground, we've also seen guys like Bobby Moffitt and Tyler Diamond win a ton of minutes off of him when they wrestled Bryce. And Ilia, he's gotten 6 takedowns in 4 attempts. He's getting his takedowns in almost a 50% clip, averaging over 3 takedowns per 15 minutes, averaging over 2.5 submission attempts for 15 minutes, and now controlling his opponents 42% to 11%. I think this is a very high-level grappler, and I think, we're going to have to wait and see how Bryce Mitchell does. If Topuria makes weight and looks good, I'm picking Topuria, but I'm assuming that that's going to be a problem for him, and I'm going to pick, as a result, Bryce Mitchell to win by decision. But like I said, it's up to Mitchell to make weight, and it's up to Topuria to make weight here. But I'm just worried that he botches another weight cut, and if he does, that pace and pressure of Mitchell and having to grapple for a full 3 rounds against somebody with that relentless pressure that Mitchell brings is going to be a nightmare for Ilia Topuria, and then I see Mitchell winning that fight. But there will be no action for me on this fight until I see the weigh-ins, see how these guys look on the scale. All right. Next fight is going to be Darren Till versus Dricus du Plessis. Let me get these stats up here for you guys, and I'll get the ticker going on the screen. Darren Till is at plus 160. Dricus minus 185. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting up at minus 170 here. So let's go through the stats. The measurables advantage goes to Dricus. He's 1 year younger, 1 inch taller, and he's got a 2 inch reach advantage. Plus, Dricus is a switch stance fighter, facing a southpaw in Till, so that's also an advantage for Dricus. Both of these guys have fought at 170 and 185 pounds in their careers. The experience advantage goes to Till, as he's got 4 more pro fights, 80 more minutes in the pro cage, 8 more fights at the UFC level, and 125 more minutes in the UFC cage. Du Plessis has the advantage in finish stats and durability, as he's got a 94% finish rate in 17 pro wins, and he's finished 67% of his UFC wins, which is 2 out of 3. While Till has got a 67% finish rate, and he's finished 2 of his 6 UFC wins. So Dricus is definitely the better finisher. Neither guy is durable, as they've been finished in 5 of 6 career combined pro losses. The striking advantage, I'm going to give to Du Plessis here. Normally, we would say Till throws no volume. At least he's powerful and can win minutes because of that power. But in this case, Dricus throws way more volume. And according to the metrics, he's actually landing 0.7 more knockdowns per 15 minutes than Till. So I'd have to give the striking edge to Dricus here, just due to the fact that they both have power, but only one of them actually does something in the cage, and that's Dricus. We can see that Dricus is attempting 12.69 significant strike attempts per minute, right? And that's while spending about 80% of his fights at distance striking range. So 12.69% in 12.69 strikes per minute, 80%. Darren Till is throwing less than 5 significant strike attempts per minute, and his fights are in 76% of the time at striking range. So he's spending almost as much percentage of his time at striking range, but literally throwing almost 8 less significant strike attempts per minute. So this guy does nothing. It's impossible for him to win minutes. He stares at people and he waits to counter. So Darren can't win minutes. And Dricus can. And Dricus has got horseshit defense. He gets hit by everything that gets thrown his way, but he brings such pace, pressure, and volume that it's a problem, because even when you touch him, he can touch you back. And both of these guys have got power, but it's Dricus who's just going to be doing way more. And then when it comes to the grappling, can't count on either of these guys. They're even in grappling because they both don't do anything. Till 5 takedowns in 11 fights and less than 7% control time 4. Dricus 2 takedowns in 3 fights on 11 attempts and less than 12% control time 4. So neither one of these guys grapples effectively up at this level, and it's Dricus who showed a 100% takedown defense on 1 takedown attempt against. And Darren Till's stopping almost 79% of the takedowns that are coming his way, and that's 47 takedown attempts. So I fully expect this fight to take place at striking range. And then when it comes to the strength of schedule, I've got Till with the advantage. Even though the metrics look similar, Till's faced a way tougher competition at the UFC level, and he's been fighting top competition for longer than Dricus has. So Darren's got the pro and UFC experience advantages. He's got solid power numbers and good takedown defense and grappling efficiency, and he's faced a much better level of competition. While Dricus is 1 year younger, 1 inch taller, he's got a 2-inch reach advantage. He switches stances. He's the better finisher, and he has the striking advantage. I see this fight being a striking battle, so obviously I see Dricus winning minutes because Till throws no volume at all. And since both guys have power, I do like Dricus to win this by decision. Keep in mind that Till has fought once in the last 2 1/3 years, and he's pulled out of 4 of his last 5 scheduled fights due to being injured. So my money is going nowhere near this fight. I don't think Dricus Du Plessis is that great. I think there's a lot of holes in his game. He does have a lot of power. He throws a lot of volume, and he brings great fights. But Darren Till just doesn't fight anymore. And while he's fought really good competition, he's lost 4 out of his last 5. His only win in his last 5 was by split decision. And he doesn't do anything on the feet. I have to count on him to knock out Du Plessis. So I wouldn't bet Till to win by any other way but by knockout. And if you're on the Till side, but I wouldn't put my money on somebody that's fought once in the last 2 1/3 years and has pulled out of 4 out of his last 5 fights and did get his ass shaved by submission by Brunson when the last time that he did fight. But he's fighting against Whitaker and Brunson and Gastelum and Masvidal and Woodley, while Dricus is fighting Tavares and Officer Giles and Marcus Perez, and then regional scene guys, and then before that, 2 fights against Roberto Soldic down at 170. So, yeah, I like Dricus to win this fight, and I'm going to pick him to win it by decision, although I could definitely see him getting a knockout here. And you know what? Let's say by knockout in the 3rd round here. That's what we'll call it for Dricus. But, yeah, we'll see what Darren Till's got for us, you know. We haven't seen the guy fight in so long. And he's still young. He could be making improvements, but he hasn't been in there in so long. There's no reason for me to be confident about this fight or to throw my money at it. So I'm going to stay away. Next fight, Alex Morono plus 155 going up against Gente Boa, Santiago Ponzinibbio, who's minus 180. This fight was just made late last night. Got the stats up here on the Patreon for you guys, and I've got some notes on it. But I have not watched any tape on this fight because it was just added late last night. The measurables advantage goes to Ponzinibbio. He's bigger. He's got a 1-inch height and reach advantage, while Alex is 4 years younger. But that age advantage is going to be offset by the fact that Alex is taking a very tough fight on 5 days' notice here, taking place at a catch weight of 180 pounds for this fight. Do I have those odds up? Did I get that? Yes, I did. Okay, cool. Let me just see something here, too. Okay. All right. And we've got that. Oh, beautiful. So, we got the experiences being even here. These guys' career and UFC experience numbers are very similar. Ponzinibbio has the finish stats and durability advantage. He's got the better finish rate both as a pro, 75% to 54% for Morono, and at the UFC level, 50% finish rate for Santiago, 27% for Morono. Alex has been more durable as a pro, only been finished in 29% of the time in comparison to 50% for Ponzinibbio. Ponz also has been finished at a higher rate at the UFC level, 40% compared to 25% for Morono, albeit against tougher competition. The striking advantage, both these guys are very good strikers, but the metrics advantage is going to go to Morono here, as he's got the better metrics, but once again, it's against lower level competition. Alex has the better significant strike differential at positive 1.35 compared to positive 0.23 for Ponz. He's got the better volume differential as he throws almost 3 more significant strike attempts per minute than his opponents do, while Ponzinibbio throws about the same amount. And accuracy, 43.4% for Morono, 41.5% for Ponz. And he's landing more significant strikes a minute than Ponz, and he's absorbing less significant strikes per minute than Ponzinibbio does. Santiago has the better knockdowns per 15 minutes, though, at 0.84 compared to 0.32 for Morono, and the better striking defense at 60.5% compared to 58% for Morono. Both of these guys tend to be in all-action wars, and neither tried takedowns much at all, and neither controls their opponents more than 8% of their UFC total cage time, so I expect a bloody stand-up war here. The grappling is even. Neither one of these guys does shit in the grappling. No point in even talking about it. Strength of schedule advantage goes to Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio has fought, beaten, and lost to the more experienced, better win-loss ratioed competition at the UFC level. So in summary, Alex is 3 years younger. He's been more durable. He has the striking metrics and the potential minute-winning potential on the feet, while Ponzinibbio is 1 inch taller. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage. He's the better finisher, has the better UFC power metrics, and the strength of schedule advantage. And Morono's only taking this fight on 5 days' notice. So I like Ponzinibbio to get the job done here by decision in an entertaining war. But like I said, just added this fight last night, been preparing all day for the show, so I didn't have any time to watch any of the recent tape on Morono or Ponzinibbio here. But the early lean on this one for me is Ponzinibbio by decision. I'll bet some of the other videos that already came out this week don't even have this fight in there because, like I said, it just got made late last night. The next fight, Paddy the Baddie Pimblett at minus 257 going up against Jared Gordon at plus 217. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting at minus 175. So here are the stats. We've got a nice measurables advantage in this fight for Paddy Pimblett here, as he's 7 years younger than Jared. He's got a 1-inch height advantage, and he's got a 5-inch reach advantage. The experience advantage, though, goes to Jared Gordon, as he's got 2 more professional fights, 115 more minutes in the pro cage, and almost 2 more years as a pro fighter. In addition to that, Jared also has the UFC experience advantage with 8 more fights and over 110 more minutes in the UFC cage. The finish stats and durability goes to Paddy Pimblett here, as he's got the better finish rates both as a pro at 79% for Paddy, only 43% for Gordon, and at the UFC level where Paddy has finished all 3 of his UFC wins, while Jared Gordon has only finished 1 of 7 UFC wins. So it's 100% to 14% when we compare these two guys' UFC finish rates. Paddy's also more durable, as he's only been finished once in 22 pro fights, while Gordon has been finished in all 5 pro losses 4 times by knockout. So 100% finish rate against for Gordon and only 33% finish rate against for Pimblett. The striking I'm going to call even. Jared's got serviceable UFC striking, and Paddy is definitely more explosive and powerful in the stand-up in comparison to Jared. However, Paddy's defense is absolutely pathetic. 41.4% striking defense. He blocks punches with his face, and he relies on his chin, so he isn't much of a minute winner on the feet, more of a moment winner. Gordon can win minutes on the feet, as he has the better significant strike differential at positive 2.42 compared to positive 1.19 for Pimblett. He's got the better accuracy at 59% does Gordon compared to 53% for Pimblett, and the better striking defense at 58% for Jared, while it's only 41.5% for Pimblett. But we have to remember that Jared Gordon has been knocked out 3 times at the UFC level, and he's been dropped twice at the UFC level. So, yeah, I mean, like, this thing on the feet, I think, is going to be close. I think, Jared can eke out some minutes here and there, but it's definitely going to be Paddy landing the bigger shots. But where this really gets interesting is with the grappling, you guys. So the grappling is interesting because we see Gordon here with 17 takedowns and 15 allowed, but what we see is a 39% control time for and a less than 15% control time allowed. So he's very, very efficient in winning those minutes on the ground. And guess what? He's spending over half of his fights there, and that's over 129 minutes in the pro cage. So Jared's getting those takedowns in almost a 40% clip. He gets about 2 per 15 minutes, and he's controlling his opponents 39 seconds out of 100, 39% of the time. Now, Pimblett is getting out-controlled at a 3-to-1 ratio. Now, it's a very small sample size of only 16 minutes in the UFC cage, but still, that's alarming. He's showing 60% takedown defense. He's allowing 3.75 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's been controlled for 8 of the 16 minutes that he's been in the UFC cage. So right there, with a big favorite in Pimblett, I see massive holes in the game. I see a guy who blocks punches with his face and relies on his chin. I see a guy with 60% takedown defense who's getting controlled 50% of the control of his UFC cage time. And he's spending over 2/3 of his UFC cage time in control time positions for or against. And he's losing 75% of those control time positions, while Jared Gordon is winning, I would say, let's say, like 49, 53. So 39 divided by 53 is about 74%. So Jared Gordon winning 74% of the control time positions, Paddy Pimblett losing 74% of the control time positions. And Paddy's blocking punches with his face, but Jared doesn't have power. So We go to the strength of schedule. It's all Jared Gordon, you guys. He's fought the much better brand of competition. Dude's been in there with Charles Oliveira. Wins over great grapplers in Joe Selecki and Leonardo Santos, who's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world champion. Guy went 3 rounds with Grant Dawson, who would absolutely dick saw Paddy Pimblett. And then he would probably cut his hair in the cage a la Brutus the Barber Beefcake after beating him. It wouldn't even be close, that fight. So Jared Gordon fighting the much more experienced competition, the much better win-loss ratioed competition. The wins are better for Gordon. The losses are very good for Gordon. The minute winning potential, both in the striking and the grappling exchanges, he's more experienced. I'm betting Jared Gordon, and I bet him to win by decision. That line is plus 500 right now on FanDuel. It's one of the fattest lines that I feel most confident about. I want a full unit on that bet to try to win 5 units. Like Sammy Sosa used to say for the Cubs, I love to hit the home run, right? And what that was translated was, I love to hit the home run. And if you ever watch the Cubs, he did love to hit the home run. So much that when there would be a 3-0 count and the bases loaded, he'd swing at a pitch that was 6 feet outside just so he could have one more shot at hitting that grand slam. But what he would do most of the time is strike out. But at this odds, I think that Jared Gordon's about 50-50 to win this fight. And I think about 90% of the time he wins it by decision because Paddy's very durable. So I could see a definite path to a Jared Gordon decision victory here, and at plus 500, it's a fat line, and I would encourage you all, if you're not on the Paddy Pimblett side, to get to the window and bet the shit out of it. The pick is going to be Jared Gordon in an upset to take out the hype train, Paddy the Baddy Pimblett, and to beat him by decision. And look, for those of you guys that are inevitably going to come out of the woodwork and call me a hypocrite, and rightfully so, I will have you know, as I've called Jared Gordon a shitheel, I've called him a prick, I've called him a turd burglar. I mean, that's somebody that steals turds. That's a horrible thing to call somebody. I've bet against Jared Gordon against Joe Selecki, very close fight. I bet against Jared Gordon with a 41-year-old man in Leonardo Santos. But this is a matchup I really believe he can win minutes in. And it's a very winnable matchup for him. And I'm putting down 1 unit to try to win 5 on Jared Gordon by decision. And that, my friends, brings us to the main event of the evening, a fight that was made just less than 2 weeks ago when Jiri Prochazka got hurt and Glover Teixeira refused to fight Magomed Ankalaev. So here we are with Jan Blachowicz at plus 215, facing off against Magomed Ankalaev. And it's not just a pretty face that Magomed Ankalaev has, you guys, as we can see right here. A very handsome man in Magomed. It's not just a pretty face. He's a well-rounded mixed martial artist, good wrestler, a lot of power, fantastic counter-strikers, never makes mistakes. So great 205-pound title bout here. Let's talk about it. We've got how many of you guys rocking with us here right now at the end of the show? We got 59 of you guys hanging out live. I appreciate all of you. Got my guy Addicted to Combat hanging out here in the room saying I'm late. I'll have to catch the replay. What's up, Unc? What's up, dude? Good to see. I know you were doing a show with Clint over there on your channel just a little bit ago. Glad to see that you're hopping in here at the end, man. Much love to you. So we've got Magomed Ankalaev versus Jan Blachowicz here. And the stats are telling us that the measurables are going to be going to Ankalaev here as he's 9 years younger and 1 inch taller, but it will be Jan Blachowicz with the 3-inch reach advantage here. Jan's got a lot more experience with 19 more professional fights, 160 more minutes in the pro cage, and almost 8 more years as a pro fighter. In addition to that, he's got 8 more fights at the UFC level, and we've got 110 more minutes in the UFC cage. So big experience advantage here for Jan Blachowicz. But he's 39 and Magomed's only 30. So the better finish rate here as a pro, edges out Blachowicz, and he's the much more diverse finisher, as he's got half of his finishes by submission, half of his finishes by knockout, while all of Magomed Ankalaev's career finishes are by knockout. And he's got 5 of 9 by knockout at the UFC level and 10 of 18 as a pro. Magomed Ankalaev submitted in his only loss by Paul Craig in the last second of the 3rd round, while Jan Blachowicz has been finishing 4 of 9 pro losses and in 2 of 6 UFC losses. When it comes to the striking numbers, both of these guys land about the same amount of significant strikes per minute. They both throw a little more volume than their opponents. It's Ankalaev who's a little more accurate and who's got better power numbers thus far. Both of these guys have been dropped, but not often. Jan has only been dropped once in 18 fights, and we've got Magomed has only been dropped once in 10 fights. So both of these guys are very good defensively, but Magomed's still edging him out there with a 60% striking defense compared to 54% for Jan. Jan getting out-controlled 2-1 on the ground. He's got 14% control time for and 28% control time allowed. And that's with him getting as many takedowns as his opponents. So that's troubling. Jan has not been very efficient on the ground, while Magomed's been very efficient, attempting just as many takedowns as his opponents have, but he's out-controlling his opponents at almost a 6-to-1 ratio. So definitely much more efficient in the grappling exchanges is Ankalaev in comparison to Blachowicz. In addition to that, 66% takedown defense for Blachowicz, 86% takedown defense for Magomed. So while Jan is getting his takedowns at a better clip than Magomed is, it's Magomed who's doing a much better job of winning the control time positions, winning a high percentage of them, and preventing his opponents from taking him down. So when we look at these strength of schedule numbers, it's Blachowicz. Blachowicz has the better wins, and he's got the better overall here. So I do like some things here about Jan. Jan is more experienced. He's fought the better brand of competition, shown a lot of power in his UFC fights, and he's getting, of those 12 wins, 5 of them are by knockout. So the guy is showing some power, while Ankalaev, is also showing some power as well. But the guys that he's knocking out, Ion Kudalaba twice, Anthony Smith. You look at the wins here for Ankalaev. Prachnio, Abreu, Dalcha, Ion twice, Krylov, Volkan. He won a staring contest against Thiago Santos, and then he beats Anthony Smith. So, but the guys that he's facing, 56 wins, 56 losses. The wins for Blachowicz are against guys with a 93-65 record at the UFC level. Alir Latifi, Pokrayak, Devin Clark, Jared Cannonier, Jimmy Manawa, Krylov, Rockhold, Sosa, Corey Overtime Anderson, Dominic Reyes, Israel Adesanya, and Rakic. He loses to champion Teixeira, loses to Thiago Santos by knockout in the 3rd round, loses to Patrick Cummins, gets out-wrestled by Alexander Gustafsson, gets out-wrestled by Corey Anderson, and he gets out-wrestled and out-controlled by Jimmy Manawa. So if you look at these losses, he's getting out-controlled in these losses, especially early in the career, giving up a ton of control time in these fights. 317 seconds to Glover, 459 seconds to Cummins, 643 seconds to Gustafsson, 640 seconds. The only loss where he didn't really get controlled was when he got knocked out by Thiago Santos. But other than that, he does really well when he's able to out-control his opponents, but nobody's out-controlling Ankalaev. So not only can I see Ankalaev having success on the feet, I see him being the one winning the minutes should this go to the grappling exchanges. Should he be a little bit worried about the Polish power, he could probably take down Jan, win some minutes there as well. But it's a 5-round fight, so he's going to have to be very careful about how he manages his gas tank here. But I really do believe that not only will Ankalaev be good in the stand-up exchanges, but that he's going to look a lot better in the grappling exchanges here. Got to go with Ankalaev to win this fight, and I think that he'll probably get it done on the ground at some point with some ground and pound here, maybe in the third or the fourth round. So I think I'm going to pick Magomed Ankalaev to win this one by third round knockout. And new. And, it just goes to show you, looks can get you everywhere in life. Magomed Ankalaev has been riding those good looks for a long time now. He wasn't even slated to fight for the title, but as soon as Yuri got hurt, they said, shit, man, we need another handsome champion. Better get Ankalaev in there to fight Teixeira. And Teixeira was like, man, he's way better looking than me. I'm not fighting this dude. Feed Blachowicz to him. So there you go. Magomed Ankalaev and new. Thank you guys for tuning in. 2 hours and 5 minutes in. We've covered all 13 of these fights. I've given you my picks on all 13 of these fights. So let's get you my tracked bets thus far. And here we go. We got the first and only money line bet on the card is 1 unit on Jay Perrin's money line at plus 200, a 33.33% implied probability against an 18-year-old one-dimensional grappler. Love that spot for Jay. Love the plus money number there, and I'm going to roll with that one. I've got a total of 2.15 units on the Daukaus Rozenstruik under 1.5 rounds at 2 different prices. 1 unit bet on one of them, a 1.15 unit bet on the other one. So a total of 2.15 units on the under 1.5 for Daukaus Rozenstruik. I've got 1 unit on the under 2.5 for Quarantillo versus Hernandez at plus 155. Love that spot. Hernandez cutting down to 145 for the first time in his career. Billy Q puts on a hellacious pace and breaks dudes. And Hernandez, very front-loaded, ton of power early in fights, and he will carry that power from 155 down to 145. Billy Q with bad striking defense. I love the stylistic matchups or the components of that matchup for violence, and the analytics and the prop template love it as well. And then we got 1 unit on Chris the Action Man Curtis on the scorecards no action at plus 150. So that one is just a play on the durability of Chris Curtis. Nobody really knocks out Chris Curtis, and Joaquin's been finished by knockout in 3 of his 5 pro losses. So I like Chris Curtis to, because Joaquin is so bricked up and so strong, he's not going to have as much trouble closing the distance because Joaquin isn't nearly as athletic and quick as Jack Hermansson was. He doesn't move as well as Jack Hermansson does. And I think Chris will just have a much easier time closing the distance against this guy. So I think Chris is much more likely to win inside the distance. And then what else do we have here? It says another 1 unit bet, but I'm forgetting what that would be. Oh, yeah, 1 unit on the Jared Gordon decision prop on FanDuel.com at plus 500. 1 unit to win 5, swinging for the fences on that one. I really like Gordon's ability to be able to win minutes here and win a ton of them in the grappling exchanges with his wrestling and top control. He's been doing it for years at the UFC level. This is a big step up in competition for Paddy Pimblett, not fighting in front of his home crowd there in England. And I think it's going to be a very, very live spot for Jared Gordon to come through as an underdog. So we did it, you guys. We covered all 13 fights. I gave you my track bets. We've already got at least 6 units down on this card. There will be more to come. Check me out on my Patreon for all of my track bets and for all the stats and all the analytics. But that leaves us with only one more order of business, you guys, and that is Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week, the last pay-per-view of the year. Who is going to get it done? Who can we rely on to shave some ass, get a finish here, and win violently? Now, there are a lot of guys that I think are going to win violently, but I can't count on them because I don't know anything about them. Saaiman Koslow, I think Saaiman wins the fight, but I don't know anything about Koslow, so I'm not willing to bet against him. I don't think Lacerda is much good, but Salvador is very unproven, so I'm not laying minus 200 on an unproven fighter to beat another unproven fighter here, even though I do think Salvador gets the job done. Silva Brown's a close fight. Quarantillo Hernandez is a close fight. Buckley is a nice little favorite over here over Curtis. Shahbazyan, haven't seen him in a minute, and he's on a 3-fight losing streak. So, and Dalcha is very dangerous and very explosive. So I don't feel safe there. Long story short, none of these guys that people are laying juice on this week, in my opinion, are safe options. So let's have some fun. We're looking for someone to shave some ass. Why not a superhero? Why not the superhero? Known simply as the Action Man, ladies and gentlemen. Chris, the Action Man Curtis, to shave the ass of Joaquin Buckley. What? Did Uncle Weezy just give you a plus money ass shaving of the week? Guys, there's only 2 weeks left in the year. I got to make my splash right now. Plus money ass shaving. I don't feel that there are safe options. I could pick Ankalaev to shave ass, but what could happen is he could win a 48-47 horse shit decision where you just flip a coin because neither guy engages. So I can't take that shot. There's just not enough places to do it this week. So if I'm going to do it, I got to pick a guy that's been rolling for us, that's been winning for us, that's been finishing fights, that will take any fight, any day, any time, at any weight class. You want to finish the Action Man by Curtis, you better make sure it's his second fight of the night. Chris, the Action Man Curtis, is going to get the job done via ass shaving and get another meme knockout over Joaquin New Mansa Buckley. Thank you, guys. Thank you for making Tuesday night my favorite night of the week as I get to talk mixed martial arts with y'all. Thank you guys for thank you for donating to the show. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up button. Thank you for hitting that subscribe button. Thank you for subscribing to the Patreon. I appreciate all you guys for watching. Leave a comment down below. Give me an oi. Just say oi to your Uncle Weezy, and I'll yell a nice oi back to you. Thank you guys for hanging out. Good luck on all your bets for UFC 282. Let's stack cash tickets like flapjacks for this, the last UFC pay-per-view of the year. God bless each and every one of you guys. I will be back tomorrow on Pub Sports Radio, 6 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show, and I'll be right back here, 10 o'clock Central Time tomorrow night for Ask Weezy. I'm going to open up this database, and you guys can ask me any questions you have about any of the 13 fights or 26 fighters on the UFC 282 card. And last of all, get some help, Dan Murgliata. Thank you guys for watching. Good night.